and not Zuckerberg. Get up here, Danny.
You know, I didn't know that Chris had a name of Tiger, but maybe we should just call him Cub. He's still figuring things out. But you know, I've been here before. A few of you have heard me, but I thought I'd tell you a couple little things about myself and where I've come from in Brookline, as you know, and how I've ended up where I am as Lieutenant Governor of Vermont. But I'm going to start back when I was a kid. There's a story in our family about how my dad, who was a doctor at Mount Auburn Hospital, he was a doctor who organized other colleagues of his as MDs because the medical doctor annual dinner was going to be at the Brookline Country Club. Now at the time, the Brookline Country Club didn't normally allow folks like him, Walter Zuckerman in Brookline, which is a fairly Jewish community, to be members. And he organized his fellow medical doctors enough to say, we're not having a dinner there. Because if an organization is going to discriminate against people, and we're going to be allowed in just because we're a bit better off and have the resources, that's not how society should work. So that's what I And as mentioned, yes, I am a farmer. This morning, I actually wasn't quite on the farm because yesterday I spent all day at the Tunbridge Fair in Vermont. It's the World's Fair, by the way, in case you didn't know. But I'm headed back this evening as well. The debate was going to be this morning. Tonight I actually have to load up my cooler and get ready for farmer's market, where I got to get up around 4:30 tomorrow morning to go do that. But I'm going to tell you one other interesting piece of history that I've known about. I haven't really talked about a lot because it's a little bit embarrassing, but we all have to remember that none of us are responsible for the actions of our ancestors. But many of you may know, some of you may not know, that today is the anniversary of the end of the Boston police strike in 1919. If you know your labor history, the Boston police strike was one of the biggest union busting events. I would put it up there with the Reagan air traffic controllers that really shifted the momentum. Unfortunately, at that time, it shifted the momentum in the wrong direction on union organizing in the early 1900s. Curious fact. I'm not overly proud of it, but the point is, people and families can improve. The police commissioner who broke the union was my great-grandfather. And the reason I tell that story is that we have to know our history. We have to know that people and families and neighbors can do better. And as people learn the facts around union organizing, around working with our neighbors, around not fighting with each other or against each other, but fighting with and together, for all of us together, we can do better. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I want to talk a little bit about Vermont. In this last biennium, we also passed the PRO Act, card check that you talked about. And on top of that, we passed through the first of one of the most arduous constitutional amendment processes, which I think is actually a good thing. I don't think constitutions should be changed with 50% votes, one way or another, as has happened in many states. But in Vermont, we have passed the first hurdles of a constitutional amendment to enshrine organizing rights in our state constitution. And that vote in the House was 129-8, and in the Senate was 28-0. So we organized not only the Democrats and the Progressives, but the Republicans as well. And in these last few years, we've moved from 10% of Vermont's workforce being in the union to 14%. So Vermont, which used to be a pretty hard state to get union organized, we don't have a lot of big shops, we're now above the national average. Union organizing is strong, You're doing it here, you're doing it across New England, and we're doing it across the country. Now, along with the union meeting you talked about, I've also brought together meetings in my office of union leaders and environmental groups to say, let's work together. Let's figure out, as we do the green transition and we do many, many projects around the state, that we make these laws beneficial for both working people and the environment. Because neither one of these organizations, and neither one of these people, and neither one of these subject areas deserve to be left behind for the other. We need a healthy planet, to have healthy food, to have healthy kids, to have a healthy future. And we need healthy, good-paying jobs today to put food on the table and roofs over people's heads. It's the work, it's the day-to-day work that you do. When I was at the convention a couple weeks ago, the Democratic Convention, I watched the incredible performance and conversation around our respective individual freedoms that we need to be fighting for, and the tremendous focus on unity, working together, not being divisive and pointing fingers at other people as the cause of the problem, which is what the marionette people at the top want to do. They want us fighting with each other. They want us pointing at immigrants or folks in the LGBTQ+ community or whoever it is to distract us from what's really hurting us in this economy, which is the concentration of wealth in the hands of the few. The Elon Musks of the world, the guy that sometimes I get confused with, the guy Mark Zuckerman. I tell you, once a week, someone says, "Hey, great to meet you, Mark." I'm like, so close. But said, "Give me his money and we'll have universal health care in Vermont. I'll take the name if I can have the money." But it's working together. It's loving our neighbors. It's lifting people up, not smushing them down. That's going to make our lives and all of our brothers and sisters' lives better. And I said I was going to come back to an organizing story earlier. Organizing is about union work. It's also about day-to-day conversations. When I was in the Uber, they should be unionized as well, on my way to the airport in Chicago, I was talking with the driver, and he said, he asked about the convention, as I was at the convention, yada yada. So we started talking politics a little bit. He said, "Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about those immigrants, because there's an area in the south side of Chicago here where they're all coming in and they're getting all the free services and all this and all that." I didn't totally correct him on every single fact that he got misled with, but I understood from that he was probably leaning, in my opinion, in the wrong direction with his presidential vote. And he talked about how his family members have been talking to him and so forth. And at one point I said, "Along with driving an Uber, what else, what do you do?" Because a lot of times Ubers are kind of a side hustle or another job for people. He said, "Well, I used to be a truck driver, but I had a stroke a little while ago and I couldn't drive a truck. I'm in rehab now, I'm getting better." I said, "No way." He said, "You had a stroke, how long were you in the hospital? Getting rehab and everything else." So I was in the hospital for about a week. Now I'm doing the rehab. I'm getting better. I get my motion back. My speech is good. I said, that would have been a $100,000 bill. How'd you pay for that?" He said, "Well, Medicaid covered it." There's the door. I said, "Medicaid covered it? Holy smokes. What would have happened if you didn't have Medicaid to cover that?" Just think about how you might have gone home, maybe after a day, if that, in the hospital. How many of your family members, on top of all the work they do to pay the bills, would have then also had to come into the bedroom and help you every day? How many brothers, sisters, mother, father, kids were going to have to then take care of you, not only for those few weeks, maybe the rest of your life, because if you didn't get the care you got in the hospital, you might not be recovering like you are today. So wow, that would have been a lot, that would have been tough. I said, the other side, who says, every man for themselves, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You deserve, to make it on your own. I said, they don't care about you. They don't like Medicaid. They think too bad. If dumb luck happens to you, dumb luck for you. I said there's two schools of thought out there. One is that, in the words of, I think it was Wellstone, we all do better when we all do better. We're in it together. They would cut Medicaid so fast. Where would you have been without that? And he said to me, you know, my family's been working on me for months, but I think you just convinced me. The point of that story is that you can be a lieutenant governor who convenes meetings and speaks to lots of people at once, but you can also change votes one person at a time. And the way you do it is you meet people where they are. Because if we scream and yell at some of these folks in the MAGA world, is that really going to make the progress? I grew up in rural Virginia for 2 months of every year. That county voted 85% for Trump. And I grew up in Brookline for 10 months of the year, and I voted 85% for Biden. The people in that rural county used to have 2,000 manufacturing jobs that you could come out of high school and make a middle-class living back in the 70s. There's about 100 of those jobs left because they've been moved overseas. They have a right to be angry. They have a right to be frustrated. Our government and our economic system has moved the work and the jobs and the dignity away from everyday people. All the money into the hands of the few. We cannot let those people keep making us be divided. So that's what I do every day in Vermont. Talk to people one-on-one. I bring people together for those meetings. And I really do thank you for your time, your attention, your day-to-day work that you do in the communities, keeping our roads working, our public transportation, all the things that you do. Because that work together is what makes it work for all of us. Thank you very much.